So again, I haven't done a lot this week. I finally got around last night. I thought, oh, I really got to check this stuff out. So around 10 or 11 o'clock at night, I sat down in front of the computer. And what I did was I wanted to test out that new version of Pure Pursuit that I found. And this is the one where I started to think what all the features were. One thing he put a feature in that says rotate in place. And it turns out they've got a differential drive vehicle, and it was set up. He said, well, if you're trying to go something about a long distance in a straight line, it kind of waves off path or something. So he might be seeing the same thing we're seeing. So he added a feature, since he had differential drive. It says if the angle, or something about if the distance off path, so it's that off path error, either that or he was maybe actually looking at the angle to the target. He says if it's above some amount, then just simply set the velocity to 0 and thing will stop, and then rotate until it's pointing in the right direction, and then continue on. And he's got a parameter for that, so you can say if it's greater than this number, then we'll do that, and otherwise just ignore it. So I just went in, when I got that loaded up, I just went and put that number like 2, which I think is 2 meters or something. Was it 2 meter? No, maybe it's a steering angle. If the steering angle is more than a certain amount, just ignore it. And I could have set it to 1, which is higher than I expect, or I could set it to 2. I figured I'll just set it to 2 to ignore that. So that's one thing I did. That anyway, that's one feature he added, was to say this rotate in place. If it's too great of an angle, just stop the speed and just let the vehicle rotate till it's pointing in the right direction and then move forward. Another thing he did was they 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 do not trigger it off the odometry statement like the original one did. So the original one, you would subscribe to odometry, and every time an odometry message is published, it would execute one loop of this code. And for some reason, they switched that over to a timer, so it just has a timer running. And I think the default parameter like 20 hertz, so it 20 times a second it updates, which I think, at least in my case, I don't think that's going to do me any good, because my GPS is publishing at a 5 hertz rate, and it doesn't do any good to run the thing 4 times faster than that with the exact same data every time. So anyway, I was curious if that was going to work and if it'd make any obvious differences. So that's another feature that's in there. He ripped out the KDL, that it was using a KDL library, which is some big fancy library that a lot of the big giant ROS packages use. And that was in there and didn't make a lot of sense to either I or Al. And this guy has gone through and ripped that out and put in more of a geometric approach to the whole thing. And what was the other thing? One thing, he changed the name on the program, and that caused me a few problems, but I finally just put it back to what the original name. I thought there was one other thing that was important about it. I can't remember what it was right now. So my whole thought was, since he'd taken a different approach and thrown out this KDL, I thought I want to see if that will make a difference, either be easier to understand or easier to work with. So I just simply went in and took my existing package from the Lyrics Pure Pursuit and just copied it out to main or somewhere, and then went to GitHub and got the new code. That's this Howde, HOWDE or something like that. It's like Howde-Robotics. And I think when I track this down, because if you back up to the main GitHub page, it's got a link and it takes you out to, I think it's a page on Carnegie Mellon University. And I think there's either somebody's thesis project or they're doing like a class project. And they've got it's a little vehicle that they say it's supposed to be for first responders. So you can tell it to drive around and do things for you. And it's just got like 2 tank treads on it. It's got like a 3D laser scanner on top of the thing. So anyway, that's the origin of this stuff. So I decided I was going to do that. So I again copied out the Lyrics Pure Pursuit, did a git clone of their repository, and went to run it, and various things didn't work. Number one, the name was giving me problems since he had changed the name, but the name of the package was the original name, and then stuff wasn't working there. So I originally just went back and said, okay, just put that back to the original name on that. That got around that. There's various other problems I had. One of the problems I had was I went to run this on the simulator, and it kept complaining that I didn't have base footprint configured properly or something. So I spent quite a while on that to get that, going down all the steps to make that work. And I finally got it so my transform tree had base footprint. It was all connected correctly, and then everything was working. And I thought there was a couple other things just small things I had to change to get it to work. But the bottom line is I went ahead and fired it up on the simulator, and the thing drives pretty much like the Lyrics Pure Pursuit does. And it wasn't I didn't like the results real well, but then I realized I'd been playing around with that changing the steering speed, because we were trying to decide if that was causing a problem, and I'd had that set to something tighter than it was before. So I opened that back up to the point where it'll just run at whatever speed it wants to, and it pretty much just runs like it did um, with the lyric stuff. So on one hand, it's good to know that we've got another source that will indeed work, and didn't take a lot of screwing around to get it to work. It was pretty much a drop in, but then I just had to go through and fix whatever popped up and complain. So let's see. So since that works, I wanted to go through and comment out the rest of the KDL stuff, because they went through and they said, okay, they put in this code to bypass that, yet they still had, say, an include for it at the top. They still had the subroutine that says calculate. I think it's called transform to base link is what it was called. They left that in even though they're not using it. So I wanted to comment all that stuff out, but I also wanted to make sure it works before I started hacking on it. So I didn't want to dig into that. And I thought, if since this works, I also didn't want to dig in too heavily to how it works until I could verify that it does work. So now that I know it works, I could go through and try to figure out, how is this different from the original one, and see if I can learn anything from that. And the thing about the timer, I was thinking that, back on the lyric stuff, that, well, maybe if you'd run it off a timer and do something different, that might work. I didn't know how much effort it would be to do that. I think all it did, they just said configure a timer for 20 hertz and call the odometry, what the odometry routine was calling to begin with. And that seems to, so it turns out it wasn't that hard to put in. So I think to take it back out, if I decide not to run from the timer and trigger it off the GPS, all I have to do is go in and put the code back that just simply says subscribe to odometry and then call the routine. So that would be easy enough to switch back to. And I don't remember if there's anything in there that had, as far as like the adaptive look ahead. So that's something I could look at to see if they made any changes in there, or controlling the velocity. I think I did notice something about the velocity as how they're calculating that, which the lyric stuff doesn't do that at all. It just simply says whatever value you told it when you configured it originally, it's either going to run at that speed or at zero speed. And I think this new one, I might have saw something about, they said set the velocity to this instead of that. So they might be doing something to control the velocity on that. So anyway, I ran it and it does run, and it gives me something to dig through and look at. So I haven't tried it on my actual vehicle, but the way it's acting on the simulator, I think it's going to do the same thing on my actual vehicle and not work, just like the original one didn't work. And the other thing was, since Al had posted something saying now he needs to look into adaptive look ahead and speed control, there's another GitHub that's called six systems or something. If you look on the comments from the last meeting, I put it in there, so it's got it tells you the name of that, and it's just another GitHub. It's somebody else that has cloned the lyric stuff and started making changes. And they were talking about adaptive look ahead, and I think they're talking about velocity control. So maybe I don't know if you could just instantly glean anything out of that or not, but that's another option. Now that's the one where, since they weren't using Ackerman, they just ripped all the Ackerman stuff out, but it wouldn't be that hard to just put it in. There's like 20 lines of code you got to put back in to get that to work. And it seems like they did some work on that. They did more work on that than what I had seen before. And another thing is, last week I was complaining about the GitHub and not being able to find anything. Let me see how quickly I can pull this up here. Let me say, go to the screen.
I was looking for that link you just mentioned as well. I didn't notice that in your last posting.
Did you find it now? So you know it's there?
No, not, was I supposed to look on the video, the same post that you put out the video?
Well, it's yeah, and then look under the chat. I changed it to say chat/info since none of that was chat. So it says chat/info, and one of those is I should have put the link to. Well, here, hey, that'd be the quickest way to find it. Here, let me do this. Let me say, go back here. Well, here, why don't I just go ahead and share this?
I was looking at your post on the 29th. Oh, 28th.
This one says 28th. GitHub, Pure Pursuit Simulated Vehicle. Original paper analysis. Maybe I didn't post. There's the one for Howde-Robotics right there. Come on. This one here is six river systems. That's the one that's it says it's got adaptive look-ahead experiments and they removed the Ackerman output. So that one would that's the one that I'm thinking of that might be another one worth looking at. So let me back up to what I was talking about here. So if I go to Lyrics Pure Pursuit, I kept complaining I couldn't find who else was using this stuff. And can you see my screen at this point?
Yes, I can. Comparing something, Lyrics Lab.
Okay, so we go to this is the main stuff for Pure Pursuit here. And I kept wondering, how do you find out who is using this stuff? And it turns out if you go, I think you say forks, and depending on what you're looking at, say, so this one comes up and says, here's this Howde-Robotics, and it says it was done 2 years ago. And if you look at this hard enough, it does make sense. But what I would do before, I was on this thing called Tree View, and it just got this whole list of things that you have no idea when they did this or how long ago they did it or anything. So I kept complaining I couldn't find anything in here. And there's another one. Maybe this is one called Network Forks. Let's try that one. There's one that gives you like a chart. Yeah, this thing here. And this thing does indeed give you, where's my scroll bar?
Oh, that's clever.
So this gives you an idea of when they were doing stuff, but you really still can't tell much about it. Well, there, we can drag it that way. So you can see all these people that have been playing with it over time. And here's that 6RS, that's the Six River system. And this master is the actual, oh, that's the Howde master at that point. So if we go back here, so again, you can see lots of stuff going on, but this didn't really tell me as much as I want to know, because see, here's the top one is the lyrics. This is the original base code. And as of, see, how does this work at the top? July of some undisclosed year here. So anyway, I wasn't real happy with that, but I found out if you go to forks, if it happens to come up in this mode, it says in the last 2 years, these people have done something with it. And if you expand this out and say 5 years, then I think I get 4 entries. So here's that Six River system that was said created 4 years ago and updated 2 years ago. This Howde-Robotics was created 2 years ago and updated 2 years ago. Then here's some older ones down here. And I don't remember. I looked at these last night trying to see what they'd changed in it. I can't remember what it was they changed. So you could do that. And then, as I said before, this is the only thing I knew about before, and it had just goes on and on. There's what I think it said 67 entries here, and they don't give you any. I couldn't find any more information about that. So that was kind of a revelation when this thing had accidentally popped up on something, and I can see what's going on here. So that's how I knew this is basically the newest one And for some reason, let's see, was that created? And this also tells you this is basically the only people that are actually working on it. They made some comment about, see, if you look at the top here, it says repository type active, and it says these have they have push activity, which means somebody's making changes and updating the thing as they go. And then the rest of these down here, you know, this encompasses all the other 63 or whatever repositories that are out there. But of all this stuff, these 4 are really the only ones that are beyond the base repository. These are the only ones that are actually anybody that's actually doing anything. So this Howde-Robotics is the one I've been playing with, and then the 6 river systems, they were doing some work, and they mentioned the adaptive look ahead and the speed control. So there might be something there that would be worth digging through to try to figure out what's going on there. So that's anyway, as I say, last week I was complaining about I couldn't find anything on GitHub, and now this is kind of a revelation finding this. There's some other stuff on the side here that I don't recall what any of this stuff does, but this right here is probably the best thing I have right now to tell me, you know, what I should be looking at to see what other people are doing with it. And it would be, I guess it'd be interesting to go out to somebody else's random repository and look at their forks to see what people are doing with this stuff. Because as I say, with it's got a total of, it's been forked 67 times. So you got the main code of lyrics, and then you got 67 other people have copied this, but only 4 people actually worked with it after that point. So that's just the case where, you know, people say, oh, I might need that in the future. They'll fork that into their repository, and then they never do anything with it. Or they might do it like what I would do. I'd probably do that and then make a bunch of changes to it and not push it back to my repository. So there'd be no, you know, no newer code that goes out there. So, you know, you got lazy people like me and other people that are people that don't know how it works, whatever. So that sums up my complaints, or that fixes my complaints from last time where I said I couldn't find anything. So it's just a matter of, again, when you go digging, you have to figure out all this stuff and try to figure out what to do with it. So, and for anybody, let's see, let's go back here. So Lyrics Labs, it turns out they say they're in Croatia, and there is a website, but I don't remember if I got anything out of by looking at the website. That's another interesting thing by looking at, see, if you look at a repository, like say the Pure Pursuit repository, and see, it doesn't give you any extra information. So if you back up to the original page, the main page, then up the top here that you might get more information here. So it's got you can send them an email, or here's their website, and it tells you they are in Zagreb, Croatia. So we'll go back to Pure Pursuit again, and this basically, this is the one that was documented on the ROS wiki. It says here, use this for Pure Pursuit, and it turns out several people have, up to 67 people have forked this, but only 4 of those people seem to be adding improvements, and they haven't done anything for 2 years on it. So it's the comment that was made by the Howde-Robotics, and that here, let me, since we're right here, let me see, how can I get to that? Clicks. Well, let's do let's do this one. No. What I forgot what I was doing. Go back. Okay, so we go back to this Howde-Robotics. Oh, this is another interesting thing. I clicked on that link that I'd posted, and what it does, it says, here's Lyrics Pure Pursuit, and then down below is it's comparing all the current version of Howde-Robotics back to Lyrics, the Lyrics Pure Pursuit stuff. So that's what this page is telling me here. So this gives you all the changes that have been made from the current version back to the original, or the current version of the Lyrics one, which is like, you know, at least 4 years old at that point. So I was going to back up to Lyrics Pure Pursuit. Well, it still doesn't tell me. Let's see, how can I click on something that will take me to head repository? Let's try this. No, and then under all these, you have multiple branches here. It could be that there's more. This I think is comparing everything in lyrics to everybody that's forked it, is probably what this is showing me here. So again, that may or may not be useful. So that still isn't doing what I wanted this to. So let's say if I just do this. Howdy. Compare it. No, I don't want to compare it. Well, here, let's do this. github.com/ howdy. That's going to search for it. Anyway, the point I wanted to make was once you track down this Howde-Robotics stuff, then you come back to their main page like this, and then at the top, it has their website. Here, how can I find that? Let's see if I go back.
Go back to your history like you did. Instead of the pure 67 list of 67, you have the timeline based
Oh,
forks.
yeah, we'll see if that works. Let's go here. Go back here. Forks. Yeah, that'll get me there. Okay. And I just had to put a dash robotics, but I had no idea what the rest of that was. So here it says they're in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And it was somebody named Kelvin Kang at CMU EDU was doing this. And this is the other thing. You go look at a repository, say like you go look like you go here. And I don't think there's any name on here telling you who owns this or who created it, but you'll get things showing up like this. This is just somebody else that has submitted a pull request. So it doesn't tell you who actually did this or who owns it. It could be down in the README. They might put their information there. Let's back up to the top page again. And then, so somebody named Kelvin Kang at CMU EDU is the one that was maintaining this. So here you go, click on their web page. And it was their Dragoon robot project. And I didn't look at it hard enough to know. It says in cooperation with the Draper Laboratory. So apparently they're putting up the money for it. And you go through here, it just tells you it's a fairly classy documented thing here. I don't know if there's enough information to. I think there is. If you scroll through here, it does have lots of information on it. So it's more stuff, but there's nothing specifically saying here's the pure pursuit that we started with, and here's what we did to change it. It's just kind of a like more of a marketing type thing. That's when you do a university project, you have to have all these things like you have to have a project plan, and you have to make up all these reports and everything. And that's what you might find here. So if you look at problem description and use case, as use case right here. Yeah, there's the use case. They're saying it could be for first responders to drive this around inside of a building and look for people, I think is what they're trying to tell us. But anyway, that's a few more things I figured out about, let's get rid of that one, about how GitHub works. And you just got to keep going down the line, poking around at stuff. Here's just more. This is probably all description on that project they did. So let's go back. So the bottom line is, if you want to find out who actually created it, and if they have any references to web pages, you go to the main owner of the repository, and then under that you've got all these different just like usual, you got all these different repositories that's inside of the thing. And see that they're all called Dragoon Bring Up, Dragoon Executive, and then here's our pure pursuit again down here that we're looking for. And in the code, they'd renamed it to Dragoon Pure Pursuit, and that screwed up the way my computer was working. It couldn't find the files, so that was something. Oh, one other thing I found when I tried to compile this stuff, I cloned the thing and said, do a cat can make just to see what was going to happen. And it was complaining it couldn't find a included header file. And I noticed on the cat can make, it said right there, it said somewhere in the, like the, what, CMake file, CMake list, whatever they call that. One of the options says, go out and execute this Python program. That's the configuration program. And then it says writing the header file to this directory. And it actually writes it out into the either devil or the build directory. So it's actually creating it on the fly. It doesn't come with the stuff. And it turns out that Python program said Python. It didn't say Python 3, and I'm running under Noetic and Ubuntu 2004. So the problem was it wasn't creating it. So I just had to go to that file, that Python file, and change the Python to Python 3, and then it worked. So that was yet another thing that had popped up on that.
We're going to talk about that again in a couple minutes when I give my update.
Okay. And other than that, I guess that pretty much points out what I've learned about GitHub in the last week or so. And in fact, I have tried one of the extra Pure Pursuit programs, and it just doesn't matter now that I know that it does work. I'm willing to invest time into it and try to figure out where to go from there, I guess.
So I know you haven't done a deep dive into it, but did you notice any apparent behavior differences in the robot between the Lyrics one and the modified one?
It looked like maybe it's just a little more jittery, and I don't know if that's might just been my imagination. And again, it's running the thing at 20 hertz instead of 5 hertz, and those two are not synchronized, so that might cause a little more problem too. And one of the things I might try is just go and rip out the timer and go back to just running off the odometry statement. That way it'll run at the rate my GPS tells it to, and it will be synchronized. So as a new value comes in, it'll say, go out and calculate that. So I might try that first and see what it does. And since he made the comment that, well, they had to put in this rotate in place because let's see here. Let's see if I can find that. So you come in here and 67 forks. Let's see. Right here, add rotate in place. And you should give me a description here. It says, add rotate in place when ego yaw is too large with respect to path. So he's saying if you got a difference, if you're not pointed at the point like you're supposed to, he's got some kind of a number, and it says that number, I don't know what ego means. I don't know if it's a typo or that means something to him. Ego. I don't know what that is, but somewhere it said he added that because, where did I see that? He said something about if the path was, see right here, he added the code that says if we're outside of this angle, and I don't know if that's the steering angle, or I think it's the angle between where you're pointed and where, and the angle to the path, or the angle to the target. He says if you detect that, to do something with it. Somewhere it had an actual statement saying why he did that, and it sounded like he was seeing the same thing we're seeing, where the thing won't drive in a straight line. It kind of wiggles back and forth, and I don't know if theirs was as bad as what ours is doing, but anyway, that was the comment that I saw. So I'm still thinking there might be something fundamentally wrong with the way this got implemented, and that's why it's acting the way it is. So that gives me something to look at and try to track that down. Where else would he put that? Because it's again, the README down here is just the original stuff. Now I didn't install like this, the ROS dep install Pure Pursuit. Oh, that's if you're if you want to install the binary, I guess you would do it this way with the install ROS step install. And I wanted the source code because I wanted to hack on it. So I just came up where it said, you know, at the top, you just say, go to code and you copy the link to it and then do a git clone and put this in. So that's how I did that. But I was trying to think if, you know, where else would he have? Well, I don't know. I'm going to give up on this. But he made some comment about they were seeing funny problems, and that's why they added this rotate in place. And I'm thinking that's probably the same thing we're seeing. And since they had a differential drive vehicle, they would just simply come to a stop and let it finish pointing in the direction and then drive again. So that's what I learned on that. So that's I'm going to stop there and say, I guess I'll turn it over to Al. We'll see what he has to say for today. Or is there any questions on that before I move on?
I asked the one that I had, and that was if you'd seen any immediate differences in performance between the two, but it'll be interesting to see what you get after you spend a little bit more time with it.
And it just at first glance, I ran it, you know, 2 or 3 times, and it looks like it's working pretty much like it did originally. So I don't think there's uh, anything major there between it at this point. But now that I know how it works, that gives me a chance to go dig through it and see what it's doing. So
Well, as far as my update goes, share my screen. Let's see, a couple things updated on the Miro board. Um, One of those is related to a number of things that Jeff had mentioned. I realized I didn't have any documentation about other people that I've come across that have been doing related stuff. Now, some of us, if Bob was watching this, there's some Pixhawk stuff and Arduino references in there under this other developers. But what I was really looking for is other people that were doing stuff with Pure Pursuit. Jeff had shared. Let's see, it was Cornell University. Where did I put that? My gosh, you may have to do. Didn't mean to. Or maybe it was Clemson. Oh, there it is. This open. They branded their project Open Pod Car. So that's in there. I didn't have that six, like those last two that you mentioned from the Lyric stuff. So I'll have to go back and maybe add one or two of those. But the reason I was trying to look at a number of them is I have run, successful tests in the yard, and this is the path at the moment that I'm trying to run, which I have not run successfully. And although the path planner or path generator software will generate all of these points, these, I think they're called Dubin's path circles, because I had the look ahead set at like 2 meters, I think, maybe 2.5, to smooth out the straights. Once it gets here, it jumps to the next look ahead point, which is up here. And so this path isn't followed in the Lyric's Pure Pursuit, and it sort of wanders off. And finds its way back up there. So it gives a really, well, poor steering. So that led me to the path of, trying to mix these 90-degree turns that seem to work reasonably well with the look ahead of 2.5 to the point of, well, maybe I need to be able to have both, to change the look ahead based on the waypoint as well as the speed.
Well,
And so
before you move on there, you can just scroll up or down. Do you have the plot that it made where it's cutting off those circles? Just to show what that was doing.
yeah. So this was the orange is, it's not the path, it's plotting the look ahead point. And so the path is as it was in the previous diagram, but then when it actually runs in this orange, which is a ROS bag, recording playback, the look ahead point, once it gets there, then the next look ahead point will come up here somewhere.
Okay.
And then the green is the wavy part as it's trying to get back to this look ahead point. So that's my current problem. And when I run, this with just those, I think they're called Dubin's paths, it will run if I adjust the look ahead path, but their look ahead value, but it's not very good. So I convinced myself that what I need is to be able to set the speed and the look ahead distance for each waypoint, or at least some series of waypoints. That's why I started writing down all of these guys, trying to say, well, come on, guys, I can't be the first one to solve this problem. And the F-110th guys, they have, they're not using GPS. They're on an indoor track. They do change the look ahead, but it's sort of, I'm going to call it hard coding, and it's not, dynamic in the sense of being able to modify it as frequently as I want. So where that has led me is, let's see. So this is my process for creating a path is, as I call it, clumsy, but I get a reference point, I get the corners, I've got a program that generates, the inwardly going points. Then through a manual process, I run another waypoint generator that generates, let's make this bigger. The waypoint generator then, based on the step size and look ahead data and all that you give it, it generates this path. And then I manually have created that, although there's some programs out there that I think I must have put that in Slack. There's some programs that could probably take some of the manual effort out that I've gotten to so far, but there's a program like Greensy guys, they use some software that uses this bootstrap approach to calculating those stripes based on the angle. So, but at the moment, I'm just doing my I do the outward paths a bit more algorithmically, and the inner up and down paths hard coded. And this is what that file looks like up until there. And so this is the input for those points. So I've gone ahead and added, a look ahead distance and a speed, meters per second, and was in the process of changing the Larry's Pure Pursuit to read in that string file, capture that XY and yaw, because look ahead and speed are also there. It's in the while statement, but I haven't done anything with that data yet. And as I told Jeff, save that comment because to get it to compile, I had to use this function program method to generate that config.h because it was not being auto-generated by something called the dynamic reconfigure package. And then I had to run cat can make. So Jeff, I guess, has uncovered some Python program that needs to be updated to generate that. So that would help me.
Do you have access to that code right handy? So you can pull up the Pure Pursuit package, look at the files?
Sure. Tell me in the Pure Pursuit. So this is Pure Pursuit.
Okay, in that directory called config. And pull up the Pure Pursuit config. And there at the top where it says Python, change that to Python 3, and then it should automatically build that.
Oh my gosh. Oh my heavens. How in the world did you ever figure that out?
Well, because when you run it, when you do the cat can make, it pops up and says, I am running this configuration program. And it says, I'm writing the header file to here. And then it says something about file not found or file not created or whatever. So somewhere it'll say it's running. Right. I just saw it go by
Well,
there.
these are my history. This is just my history.
Okay.
Because I was going to scroll back to see if I still had those error messages. But I think the history probably killed all the, yeah, I don't have any more. Anyway.
And actually, if you'd run cat can make right now, it won't run a lot. In fact, it may not.
I don't think it'll cause a problem because it's there. It's in the devel. It's when it's when I delete devel because I think, oh, something's really broken. I better clear my.
Yeah. Okay. I think that'll fix your problem.
So I looked at that message, and Googled and Googled and Googled and like, once again, you had better luck coming across searches than I do. It would blow up to about 4%. You made it through 4. Anyway, we'll let that run. What else did I want to mention? Added speed and distance to the input file, updated generate waypoint.
You might want to add that comment on there that says, oh, go change Python to Python 3. So that fixes it.
Ah,
So
oh,
right there,
wise one.
so that right there is the one that's telling you that it says,
So that files can't find it.
I thought it actually said something about run the, if you dig through the catkin, what's it called? Catkin, no, the cmake.list file in there somewhere. It'll say run this Python program to generate the configuration. And I don't remember where it's at or,
What should I search for?
but how about right at the bottom there where it says dynamic reconfigure API and it says generate that. So right there, I think it says, yeah, CFG/pure pursuit config. That's what's running that program right there. So there's something in here that says go run a Python in the program in the middle of this. That's what starts the thing. And you don't have to change anything here. I'm just saying that's what caused that to run. That's the old problem about the old Python and the new Python is why they did that. So the error message you're getting, I think it said to copy the file, but it says that file did not exist. And it didn't exist because the Python program didn't run because it didn't like your version of Python.
Didn't like my version of Python.
Yeah, because you just say Python expects you to be running Python 2.7, and on the newer stuff, you have to run Python 3. So you specify at the top saying this requires Python 3. So just adding that 3 is what, every time you try to run the old stuff on the new stuff, you have to go update all your Python programs. That's the minimum you have to do. And then there's other changes from Python 2 to 3 that, like print statements are different, and there's various other things, but that's the first thing I always try is putting a 3 on that, see if that works. Because I assume you're running like ROS noetic, and you probably have what, Ubuntu 20 or 22 that you're running.
What I'm confused by is that I changed this to Python 3 before I did cat can make, and I'm still getting the error.
Well, hold on a second here. Let's see. Blah blah blah. It says regulated fatal error. No such file. And it could be you have to delete your whatever the devil in the build.
Did that. I did that before I did cat can make.
Oh, fatal error. Blah, blah. The other problem I had, this is one of the things where it came back to bite me because I was trying to look in pure pursuit config H, and the fact that they'd renamed their program Dragoon pure pursuit. I tried changing that and working around it, and finally I just gave up and changed everything back to just the name of pure pursuit. So for some reason it looks like it's saying your C++ program cannot find this because it didn't get copied. So it could be up above where it's trying to where it's actually running that Python program. Maybe it put out some errors saying couldn't start Python or no go.
I changed, somebody said that they had issues with the format of this statement. This statement, I think before was like all on one line. But that's not, I don't, either this isn't running.
We'll go back to your
because
error list again and maybe I was gonna say search, but you can't search here. So in order for this to try to compile that pure pursuit, Just out of curiosity, why does it say pure pursuit regulated? Is that some other code you're trying to run there?
I just renamed it. I didn't want to mess up the original, so I gave it a new name.
Okay, pure pursuit, pure pursuit.
So I just ran, maybe this formatting is messed up because this I don't think is getting run. Yeah, I don't think this code is getting. That's not, that statement's not working, maybe.
So anyway, that's why it's failing, because there's something about it was supposed to run that ahead of time.
Yeah. Okay. The other thing I just was spending time on is throttle control. At the moment, I just have my throttle hardwired, literally. I'll go show you a picture. Slack, very Slack. Did I just close Slack? I didn't want to do that.
Go down onto your image and it'll bring up your X.
Down on the image.
To see now your cursor's on the image. See, there's an X in the upper right hand corner. That's the X you're looking for. Right
This
there.
one?
No. Go back on the picture. Right to your right, about an inch to your right.
Yeah, I get rid of the. I have a zoom image there. Oh, okay, I didn't see that X.
There you go.
Let's see. I posted a couple pictures.
And the reason you didn't see the X is because it only shows up when your cursor's on the picture. So that's why you're getting confused.
So at the moment, I have my throttle at a preset hardwire, and so I was doing research on what am I going to do about that. Make some screen prints of different stuff. It's just a hodgepodge. I was looking at some guys who had used beefy cables for transmission control. Thought that was interesting. Here's what one of those cables looks like for an outboard motor. And so I was thinking, this is I call it a sliding, oh, here's the name, a sliding table rail with a NEMA stepper motor on the back of it. I don't know. I think this only gives you 5 pounds, but so I was thinking something like that. Hold on, let me get the wire. So this is, a $10 cable from Amazon that stop share so I can see what I'm controlling. I mean, on one hand, it's just got that sort of deal. And on the other end, as you would expect, it's got the wire. And so I was thinking putting that together with the stepper motor might be a way to go as an option, because I'm half thinking, although NEMA motor would probably never have the power to do it, or I guess you can get a bigger NEMA motor, but have a similar setup to control the hydrostatic transmission. That's down the road. So anyway, that's just a little bit of thinking on that subject.
Have you tried putting your scales on to see how much force you need on that?
Not yet, because I like, oh, the wire is on there and it's working and it's stable. If I take it off, I'll mess it all up. So I'll get around to it.
Because I'm thinking that might just be deceptive. It's such a short little lever. You just think it takes a lot of force to move that, and it may not take as much as you think. Like, for instance, that cable you got right there. Can you grab that handle and push it in and out and see how much force does it seem to take to do that? Yeah, if you just pick it up and hold it in one hand and take your other hand and move the lever in and out. The
Yeah,
knob.
not much. I mean, it doesn't have much holding power. But I mean, I could fix that with,
Well, again, it comes back to the concept. Maybe you just think it takes a lot of force and it doesn't, because if something like that will hold your throttle, and just like on the original handle that was on your lawn tractor, it's got some kind of a handle. You move up and down, it's going to have some kind of a friction thing to keep it in place, and
yeah, it's very little. I mean, there's very little friction in this at the moment. So
it could be that wouldn't hold it then. But yeah, do you have the original one off your lawn tractor, or did that get thrown away?
thrown away. Burn the boats, Cortez said.
Yeah.
Burn the boats.
And I know, like on a lawn tractor handle, when you go to move it, it does take some amount of force to move that, but it's still it's not overly, doesn't take a huge force to move that. So I'm thinking, my whole point is it may not take as much force as you think it does to actually move that.
I'll get my luggage scale out and see what it says. So that's about it for
And then
me.
if you look on Amazon, you can find a whole range of RC servos that, pick one, just pick one is like twice the force that you need when you're done, and that way you're fairly pretty much guaranteed it'll hold it in place.
So that's where I'm at, trying to. You haven't stumbled across anybody who's done anything with Lookahead and Speed down at a waypoint level, have you?
I was thinking that F110th group, they were doing something with that, and I noticed they've got something published out on a YouTube video saying this is how pure pursuit works. They went back to the original paper, they showed the original pictures and put all the equations there. And let's see, they had all they posted all the stuff, but then I go look at their code and they're doing it totally differently. So that confused me at that point. But anyway, I think they were playing with the adaptive look ahead and the speed control on that F110th stuff. And what was the other thing that then that one from Six River Systems or something, they say they're doing something with it, and I haven't looked to see how any of that works.
Yeah, before the meeting, let me share one more thing. Before the meeting, I stumbled across one more outfit that looked promising. I just didn't have time to dig into it. These guys. Am I sharing my screen? I am.
Yes.
So I mean, that's just the name they've given it, but they're using Pure Pursuit. They've got a GitHub. And that looked reasonably promising. The other thing that I'll pull up here quickly that I thought might be useful in the future is, oh, why is that link not coming up? There it is. I mean, they're trying to sell hardware, but they've also posted their software, and they seem to have ROS and ROS 2 tutorials for their stuff. So I thought that would be useful, but they're going back to here, their pure pursuit. They've got a lot of documentation for their stuff. I hadn't gotten into their GitHub yet, but anyway, I was just going to point that out. That looked like a useful and well organized set of folks.
Yeah, the fact that that right there said parameters for minimum look ahead and maximum look ahead sounds like, yes, they are doing some kind of adjustment on that. So that's encouraging. But as you went through that and you said that page, you said, well, here's ROS 2 and regular ROS. It did occur to me again that I should go look at the code for ROS 2 and look at their pure pursuit stuff and look down at how they're actually calculating the steering angle and see what they're doing there and see how that compares to what we're doing now. Yeah, it could be it's just the exact same stuff they've copied over and just added some stuff on top of that. You know, from the standpoint of trying to get it to drive in a straight line was my point on that. Because the ROS 2 does have some adaptive look ahead, so they do have something set up for that. But I'm still looking at the point, how do you just get the thing to go straight? So that would be interesting to look at that stuff. And if we had to, we could fire up ROS 2 and drive it and see how that responds, you know, at the slow speed with the just coming directly off the GPS.
Yeah, I just haven't spent any time on ROS 2 yet, so one step at a time.
I can't remember what it was that I decided I didn't want to run ROS 2 because of something I ran into, and that's the time I was trying to just get a simulator to run, and I think what I was going to do, I was going to run the gazebo simulator in ROS 1, and then load up the navigation in ROS 2 and have them talk to each other. And I think I ran into a few other things like some of the drivers didn't exist, and I didn't want to try to track those down. So maybe if I just put my mind to it and say, this is what I want to do, it wouldn't be that hard to get that up and running. So I don't know.
One step at a time.
So one other thing I noticed, I was going back through the old videos. I can't remember what I was watching. And these are actually the ones that are recorded on my computer, not on YouTube. But when I play it, I noticed that every time I was talking, I'd hear this thumping and something, funny noises. I think my microphone was picking up noises in my room. And then the later ones, I don't think it does that anymore. But I think on Zoom, I went under the audio settings, and there's something about noise reduction. Microphone array, same as that. Audio settings. It's under audio settings. And under audio. But anyway, at one point it says something about yeah, here it is, audio profile. It says background noise suppression. So if you go under, because I doubt if I can show this on the screen, because it'll let me see if this works. Let me say share screen one. Let's see, it's going to give me a picture of it. No, of course, anything that Zoom is showing me, it won't show up. I can't record that. I can't do anything with it. So anyway, on Zoom in the lower left-hand corner, it says audio. You click on the little pull down button and bring it up your, there's a thing that says audio settings. You go to that, and then under on the settings where it says audio, you go down 3/4 of the way down the page, it says audio profile. And then down below that, it says background noise suppression, learn more. And then I've got it set to high. And I think that's getting rid of all the weird noises I was picking up in the room. So just as a point of interest, that, you know, if you set that to to high, that's going to get rid of extra noises, like your dog making noises and everything. That might help that too. So
Mine's on auto at the moment.
you might want to click it to high, because you set anything to auto, it's gonna, it's gonna come and go, and sometimes get real loud, sometimes get real quiet. So, and I've had it set to high, and I haven't noticed any problems. And I did notice that my old videos had a lot of extra room noise in it, and now they don't. So and when I go back to index this today, I'll go back and watch the whole thing and try to keep track of that. But it was very noticeable back on the old videos. So that was interesting.
I just set it to high.
Okay. So that's let's see, am I still sharing? Stop sharing. Okay. So I guess that's all I have for this week.
That's all I got.